My name is Adrian Rosado. I am the president and founder of the Zion Group. With the Zion Group, we work in three specific industries: corporate America, the federal government, and higher education. I've had the opportunity to work in all these industries over the past 10-ish years. It's been a really fun ride. I've been able to meet a lot of really awesome people, and just connect and be able to become a connector of a lot of different people and a lot of different industries. Hence the diversity of the industries on this panel right now. My educational background is I have an undergrad in political science, international studies, and a master's degree in business administration. Two of the latest and pretty big projects that I've been working on over the past couple years have been the cultural clarity experience. I've been able to collaborate with a few of the people on the call right now on the cultural clarity experience. And what we did with the cultural clarity experience is we developed a global leadership program for students and directors to go over to China. We've done that for the past couple summers. We've been able to partner with a ton of awesome universities. Mr. Miner, Mr. Cortez has been an integral part of that with Northeastern Illinois University, as has the TRIO program in the United States of America. So, we're really happy for that. We've been able to take over 30-something students to Asia at this point, and we're looking to really see a ton of expansion over the next couple years. Due to the current situation, we planned on expanding the program to the Philippines this summer. Unfortunately, that won't be happening, but the fact of the matter is the growth and the opportunities there, so we're looking to see where that takes us. The second biggest project that I've been working on over the past couple of years is called the Minority College Relations Program. And that is a federal contract that I was able to receive through the U.S. Army, where we provide the U.S. Army with high-level interns in the areas of business and engineering. We've had this contract for 4 years now. We've been able to produce over 5 cohorts for the U.S. Army. With that project, we've been able to get a 70% job offer rate to these students. The cool part about this project and that contract that I think a lot of us will appreciate is the students who do get accepted into the program after we've recruited them and done everything, they have to come from minority serving institutions, which typically means they will be of minority backgrounds. So minority serving institutions include historically Black colleges, universities, tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions, Asian American, Pacific Islander serving institutions as well. So, I've been busy on a lot of projects, but I've also had a ton of fun producing these great projects and had a ton of fun collaborating with everybody on these calls with them. So with that, if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know, but we'll keep moving on with the introductions, and we'll go with Erika Aquino next.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that, Adrian. My name is Erika Aquino, and I live in Manila in the Philippines. I have a master's degree in communications from the University of Asia and the Pacific. My background really is in public relations, marketing, and business development in the hospitality, tech, and finance industries. So right now, I wear several hats. First, I am the executive director of the Infinito Group Foundation, which is the nonprofit arm of Infinito, an outsourcing and tech company. So the nonprofit's vision is really to empower the underprivileged Filipino child through STEAM education initiatives. I am also managing partner for the Brewery, the Philippines' most award-winning craft beer. And that was a lot of fun. That is still a lot of fun, despite everything. I'm also an advisor and partner to a number of ventures, including an education platform and a recruitment app. Some major projects that I've worked on in the past 2 years, past 3 years or so. So one, I've created and I'm still in the process of creating, because it's ever evolving, a feeding and learning program for about 700 children here in the Philippines in 2 to 3 cities. That's been quite a challenge, but really, really fulfilling. There's a lot of bureaucracy here that we face. There's a lot of logistical problems, logistical issues, but you know, with patience and with a lot of passion for it, we get the job done. We're also I've also invested again, as I've mentioned, in an award-winning craft beer. Our project right now is really expansion. We've been brewing at capacity. The Philippines is still an up and coming market in the beverage industry, but we're really quite excited. We need to expand at this point, but again, with the crisis, we don't know now how we stand. So yeah, that's me. Back to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Erica, for that. Appreciate that. Mr. Aaron, can we get you up next?
You're on mute, Aaron.
All right, here we go. I was using the space bar, but it's just not working. Hi, how y'all doing? My name is Aaron Cortez, and as you can see, this is what COVID is doing to me. It's just huge cups of coffee. So hopefully that gets us moving in the right direction. So once again, my name is Aaron Cortez. I work at Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago. Is one of the smallest state public institutions. We offer a number of services. I'm part of the Center for College Access and Success, which focuses on serving low-income, first-generation students, parents, and families across Chicago, Cicero, and Berwyn. I directly oversee, within my role of Director of STEM Initiatives, I directly oversee two federal grants. Both of those are TRIO grants. And those TRIO grants are for pre-college students in about altogether 16 different high schools. And those are the ones that we actually get funded to serve. We do a number of STEM activities with them. I won't go into detail, but most of our work, it's hands-on, it's project-based, and it focuses on students gaining certain type of skill set so that they could themselves not only learn and master the content that we're working with, but also be able to present that work and do workshops themselves to their peers, or even to students that are like in higher levels than themselves. So with that work, what we do is we have two initiatives. We have the initiative that is called the STEAM, three initiatives. The bigger one is called the STEAM Conference. We're in our 10th year. This was going to be a 10th year, but in May we were going to host it, but yes, that's just not going to happen because of the situation. But we usually get anywhere between 500 to 1,000 people coming down to Northeastern on a Saturday. We don't charge for the service, and we run about 40 concurrent sessions. And all those 40, from the 40 sessions, about 30 get delivered by high school, middle school students. Sometimes a little bit more, depends on the year. And so they will deliver the whole entire workshop session. They will do 2 sets or sometimes even 3 sets of those sessions. And so students that, participants, anyone that participates in the activity, not only they come out with the excitement of having, coded robots or fly drones or build rockets, whatever that is, right? It doesn't matter. Or do an art activity too. They will not only come out with that positive approach to learning, but they also sometimes will be able to take some of those outcomes with them. So like a deliverable might be that they might take a little small robot with them or a rocket with them or whatever it is, right? And it could be like access to a app development site. So that's kind of like one of the large activities. Out of that, we started doing what we call the STEAM Academy for Social Impact. And so we have 2 versions for that. The first version is the state one. So we have gone to Puerto Rico, we have gone to Alaska. We take about 5 to 8 students, and those students lead workshop sessions to other TRIO programs, participants. So instead of us as professionals leading, which, it's normal, right? That's what we do. We teach, we educate, we instruct. We have our students do that. And so we support them through the process. And so we usually stay within those states for like about 7 to 10 days. And within the 7 to 10 days, we go through a whole activity. So we have done underwater robotics in all three of them. So our students will have the materials. We'll teach to 20 to 25 students, sometimes 15. It depends on the number of participants that the other hosting institution might have. And we run through it. Out of all those, we have come out in the news for our Alaska projects. So that has been very interesting to just showcase, the work that low-income first-gen students could do that come from underserved neighborhoods and sometimes schools that don't have any of these resources. So yes, they still have some privilege compared to other parts of the world, but within the United States, they are the ones that with the lowest or with the most need. And then we have the International Academy. So for the past about 5 years, we have dived into the international project. And so we have gone to Peru and we have gone to Colombia. We went to Peru like 5 years ago. We took a group of students. We worked with the Organization of Ibero-American States. We also work with the Organization of American States and some the embassies and other, the Secretary of Education of Peru, to develop these activities where our students, once again, we take the whole concept of the STEAM conference, and instead of doing it for 1,000, because we just don't have the capacity for that, because we only take like 8 to 10 students, we do it for about 200. And so 200, 250 students, and then we'll host the STEAM conference, once again, the same format of delivering instruction by the students, but we also add a component of a week-long training on underserved neighborhoods. So we will work with the Secretary of Education or our partner to actually take our students to schools where they don't have these resources. And so even beyond that, when we started doing the Colombia project, which is in our 4th year this year, but it's still not gonna happen either. What we did is we also took some of our equipment and we did a microcontroller programming class. And so we knew that the schools didn't have those resources. They had computers that were old, but they didn't have the microcontrollers, any of the circuitry necessary to do this kind of work. So we actually, gave out like class sets to them, right? And so like we not only went through the project and what it will look like, we also give the resources to the teachers. And right now we're working with the Organization of American States to little by little getting to a part where we could do certifications with them. So that way teachers in Latin America are able to get certified on, doing this kind of computational thinking approaches. So there's quite a bit out there that we're doing in that end. And then, recently last year we did the Cultural Clarity program with Adrian, taking students to China. So we took 4 high school students. We're the only high school students in the project. All 4 of them were female, and all 4 of them got accepted to universities. All 4 of them are doing excellent right now. They have also been engaged in other activities with us, but that's when you see like the power of the activities, right? And so I think, and I'll leave that to Tri and to Erika and to Adrian to say, but I think that if we weren't to say that those students were high school students, I don't think many of the participants wouldn't even notice that they were high school students. They were assumed they were college students. And I think it was just the work with them for like 4 to 5 to 6 years, preparing them to do that. And I think that's what we do in TRIO. We make sure that we provide those support systems so they're prepared not only academically, but also that they have those skill sets to go beyond, right? And to be like workforce ready and to be actually active learners and to, deal with the difficulties of just, getting old and going through the process of having accountability and responsibility and dealing with the world that is just not as supportive of comfortable, right? So I think, that's kind of like one of the big projects. As a side, I'm also very involved with the TRIO nationally. So I have served as the TRIO president for Illinois. 2 terms I did on that. And then I just finished up my term as Education Opportunity Association president, which is oversees 8 states in the Midwest. Well, actually it's 10, but one of them is like connected into 3, so too much detail. But anyway, so that, and through that work, I also get to sit in the Council for Opportunity Education Board of Directors. So we do that, and this will be my last year sitting on that board. And we'll see what the future gives us. But, I think we will continue working the way we're doing, regardless of the current situation. We have transitioned all of our programming to be online now. And so we're doing a lot of live work where we use like our Google Hangout system, and then we just try to work with students that way. So we're being proactive as soon as we were informed that the situation was occurring. And lockdowns started occurring, schools started closing, we just moved ahead. We didn't think twice. We knew that our students are the ones that are most need, and we don't want to leave them without that academic support, because you all know, you stop studying for a little bit, you forget the skill set, right? And it's hard to get back at it, and especially if you already are at a disadvantage. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, or a lot about me. So thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go. Let's move on to Miss Tri Shu from Wuxi, China.
Hello, good morning there, and good evening to Erika and me. It's 11:20 here. Hello, I'm Tree, the plant you were able to see before lockdown. So I work in education first to create a comfortable English environment for over 10,000 Chinese students, offering them opportunity to be able to use their English in real life situations. So also my major is in financial management. So I have a lot of interest in investment. I'm a hotel investor and a VP for a travel agency. So basically combining all this together, I'm in two industries, education and travel. So these two industries took huge hits during this pandemic. So before, all of my work was outside, taking students all around the world, like the program I did, an intensive language program. A short-term English study tour, we use immersion teaching method to move English classes across the country. So combining English language learning with local culture. So in the morning, we have classes in a picturesque place, and in the afternoon, we lead fun activities so students can apply what they learned in the morning. So we've been to many places recently. So the most recent one was Xishuangbanna. So we did tree climbing, cave exploration. We built our own raft by bamboo and tires, and did the river rafting, learning new local culture, and dancing with elephant foot drum. So students can improve their oral English fluency and build up their English confidence, broaden their horizons. So while enjoying like really in-depth experience of Chinese culture in 5 days only. So some students can even move up a whole new English level in such short time. And of course, multiple China tours for American students and directors with Adrian. So here in China, we call it Elite International Exchange Program, a really fancy name. And in 2021, we will begin to work on business professionals for our global executive program. So super excited for that. It has been very fun to be able to maneuver seamlessly through those industries, as it gives me opportunity to meet, collaborate, and create with individuals from so many different backgrounds. So allow me to help and make connections between countries. And you see me here, I've been working from home for 2 months now. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
So really quickly, a little bit of background on Tree that I want to provide. The cultural clarity experience and a lot of the programs in China don't happen without Tree. She's been a strong cog in the system in terms of being able to allow us to connect with Education First and the universities out there in China. As many people who are on the call and some other people who've also been in China with us know the importance and the value that Tree brings to the program. So Tree and Erika, we appreciate both of you for coming on at such a late time over there in Asia. So we're very appreciative, and we're excited to hear more from you. So with that, we want to round out the introductions with the incomparable Miss Angela Howard.
Wow, that was quite the, you set the standards high, Adrian. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for, Adrian, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on this panel. My name is Angela Howard. I have a background in business psychology. Aaron, fun fact, I was a McNair Scholar, which is a part of the TRIO program. So I am a product of that. I think that's, I hope that's okay. I hope that puts you all in a good light. But my educational background is in business psychology, and I've used that experience to help organizations build human-centric workplaces. So a lot of my career has actually been in human resources, organizational development, people development. So I'm currently working with an organization called Dober. They are a chemistry and technology company. They are a supplier to some global distributors. So we make kind of industrial sized cleaners, we treat water, but also we have a operational effectiveness technology and app that they've created. So they're kind of all over the board, but heavily influenced by global economy. So my role currently, although usually I'm working on things like talent acquisition and candidate experience and development and engagement and employee experience, right now it's really about the basics during this pandemic. So working with employees to ensure that they feel psychologically safe. And we're going through workforce planning now to ensure we're really balancing and leveraging the strengths on the team to be resilient and get us through this time. So crisis management, I'm going to add that to my resume because that's something you don't get all the time, but you know, learning and experiencing this as I go, just like all of you. So I'm excited to chat more.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate you being on the call or on the conference. So really quick before we get into the questions, I just want to touch base since we do have the United States of America, China, and Philippines represented on this call. I would just like to touch base really quickly, no more than a minute and a half, on the current state of each country. And I'm going to let Erika Aquino go ahead and facilitate this next portion.
Thanks for that, Adrian. Again, just as he said, 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 sentences. What the state of your country is like right now. Why don't we start where it all started? Let's hear from Tree, who has been out of the, at least in the house for about 2 months.
Okay. Actually, we are not in quarantine anymore. I just choose to work from home because it has better internet. We have 54 imported cases and 1 local case today. So actually, we have been like without any cases for a few days, and all the industries have been back to normal, except the schools that are still like slowly opening in different times. But here in Jiangsu province, we're pretty close to Shanghai. So we don't have any new cases for over a month. And all 631 cases, confirmed cases, are all cured. And they're all way back home already. So
that sounds really
good news. Yeah, that's a hope.
That's really good news. That's really good news, Tree. I mean, yeah, it really gives us hope for the rest of the world. For the United States, maybe Aaron, you could tell us something about what's happening over there.
All right, good. Sorry, I keep on fighting with this mute button. So things in the US are kind of scary at the moment. Not kind of, very scary. So I'm just going to give you some numbers as of today, coming straight out of the CDC. We have about 68,440 total cases. There's 994 total deaths. And so you could just go to the CDC USA CDC site and see this information. I will say that at least on many spaces, on many states, most of the universities have closed. So we don't have any classes happening. The majority of universities that I am aware of have gone into the rest of the spring semester online. Some schools have even moved forward to saying that they won't even be offering summer classes. So that depends. That's institution by institution, state by state. Also, there are lockdowns. And I'll just give you a little bit. Just over like 2 days ago here in Chicago, people just thought that it was warm enough, and they decided to go outside, even though we're in the middle of a lockdown. And so there's like numbers of pictures of people like in the lakefront, hanging out, running. I mean, saying don't go run, but you know, it was just way too crowded. So, you know, even though we have this 15-day to get back to normalcy by the U.S. Government and by the president's office to say that we I think in 2 weeks, more or less, we'll be back to normal. It just doesn't seem like it. And so, you know, even though there's recovery packages coming through and people are getting some funding and some support, it's just not enough, especially for those that are like the most at need, right? Those that are working those roles that they need to be outdoors, and so those positions that are required to be outside, and you know, not only the medical field that is being exposed, but you know, even people that are delivering things, you know. So you know, once again, it's a specific population that's going to be always affected. Many of us with privilege, we get to stay at home, do webinars and calls, and you know, yes, we're frustrated. We're there's a lot of feelings going through, and we want to be outside, but at least we're safe and we're not being required to be out there exposing ourselves and our families. So, you know, we're in a very difficult situation in the United States because, you know, we are at the back end of all the other countries that have gone through, but it doesn't seem like we're learning. So it just seems like we're just kind of like, we'll see what happens. You know, we're fine. Let's move on with life. And, you know, it's unfortunate. This is just my perspective. It doesn't mean that I'm speaking on behalf of the CDC of the government. But just as experience, I think we're in a very tough situation right now, and I don't think it's getting any better. So unfortunately, that's where we are.
I'm sure. Angela, maybe you can tell us a little bit about corporate America and how this whole crisis is affecting you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just going to add that from a workforce perspective, it's causing a lot of uncertainty when it comes to not only jobs, but the future of those jobs. I think there's certain industries that are especially impacted, like the restaurant, hospitality industries, as well as like linen and laundry, which is an industry we work with pretty closely. So there's certain industries that are hit harder. Everyone's hit hard. So workforces, you know, we're seeing reductions in force. We're seeing businesses close down altogether. Luckily, there is some relief coming for smaller businesses. So there's also a stimulus package that's in flight right now. We're still getting more information on that. But small businesses are hit hard because of cash flow, right? There's a lot of things that are in play, including payroll. So unfortunately, what's happening is if businesses can't pay their employees, they're struggling to figure out a way to either reduce hours, provide furlough, or lay off people. And so that's a huge impact to the economy, but also jobs. And then you also have just the uncertainty of how long that's going to last. So many businesses are on the fence about what is the threshold for when we should make the hard decisions. So it's a lot of factors that are coming into play. And businesses are, so at Dober, we have a very focused effort on being transparent and honest and open during this time. It's one thing that you're living your personal life through uncertainty, but one thing that I would suggest businesses do is be completely transparent and honest, because you don't want the workplace to be another place where you have a question mark over your head or uncertainty about what the future is to hold. Oh, Erika, I think you're on mute.
Okay, so thanks for that, Angela. Thanks for that, Angela. On my end, I'm in Manila. We are on lockdown for about a month, government mandated. And that means that basically we're not allowed to go outside. Only one person per household can go outside with a quarantine pass, with both a quarantine pass and an ID. So no one's going to work, mass transportation has stopped. And rumor has it this may go on for about 3 months. classes are all online, or if there's any. Some industries have stopped completely, and yeah, it's been a little strict, but people are in general very compliant. It's quite difficult here, particularly where I live. It's a city of 13 million people. So what does it mean? We're very densely populated. There are people living in slum areas. The virus can be contracted easily. So yeah, it's not great. So yeah, yeah. That's it on my end, Adrian.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I think that we're all pretty much on the same page in terms of how it looks in China, how it looks in the Philippines, how it looks over here. It's been pretty trying. So thank you to everybody for updating us on how this looks. I do want to really take this time and take this opportunity for us to talk about specifically our industries and some of the solutions that we can provide. So in terms of like talking about the industries, talking about how this actual situation has changed the course of our industries, right? That's been super important right now. Like, you know, we could talk about online changing everything online all day, but I would love for us to really dig deeper and really think about how, you know, we were doing business, we were conducting business before versus how we're doing it now. So I know I provided each panelist the list of questions. So the first question is, how has the current global market changed the course of your industry? So with that, maybe we can get Aaron on that.
Okay. So the educational industry overall has been hit pretty hard, and pretty hard because I think our biggest issue is that we weren't prepared to deal with a situation of this magnitude. I don't think anyone was, but I think within the area of education and teaching and providing those resources, I think one of the problems is that we haven't built the capacity for our peers, right, and our colleagues. And so, you know, you'll see it. All you need to do is just Google, how do I log in? How do I create a virtual meeting? How do I, you know, log into Zoom? And it's like the trending topic, right? And so because we have this problem of like not having those kind of like those tools, those trainings, right? Because it was not necessary. If you teach a higher ed course, most likely the majority of your course is in person. You know, you give out, you know, the work, but it's not like submitted digitally. Maybe digital means that they created the document, they attach it to an email and send it to you, but it's not like on an online digital platform, right? That is just worked on it and it has some settings to do so. So, you know, that's the first part in terms of like just the logistics. Our biggest problem, and I'm pretty sure this is happening across the globe, right? It's just access, right? You can't go digitally and serve if people don't have broadband, right? Like if they don't have internet access, it does not matter that your institution is prepared to transition, right? And so like, how does that even, I mean, and I think the most frustrating part is that it took this much and this kind of a big event for us to realize that it is a necessity. It's kind of like leading towards a human right? Like you should have this right to actually access. So just in terms of the global market, I think it's just pushing us all to like be more prepared in the industry level, right? I mean on the digital level, right? And be able to like connect differently, right? That we might come out of this doing a lot more e-learning than we have done in the past, right? But once again, I don't think the infrastructure is prepared for any of that. So even if we move into a more e-learning platform, a system online, the industry might move that way, but it doesn't mean that those recipients are prepared. So I think that is the biggest issue. I think the market has changed easily. You move to e-learning and so what, right? But it becomes of a privilege again. So if you're privileged enough to have high-speed internet, then you're good. But if you're not, then you go back to be underserved, right? And so I think that's what we're seeing, at least on my end, on the industry, on higher ed industry.
So really quickly, Aaron, so with the whole shift, because obviously we've all been seeing that as well, right? This big shift to e-learning, but now more specifically in the higher education field, e-learning has been around for a number of years. I remember when I was I was doing my master's degree, some of my classes were offered online, but not a ton of them, right? And I feel like, 10 years later, there still wasn't this huge influx of online classes still being offered. Everything is still predominantly in person. So did it really take this pandemic to force us to not only take these classes online, but also in your specific case, and a lot of our specific cases, but I'm speaking to higher ed right now, now you're having to do your company meetings, you're meeting with the students online, and you're talking about hundreds of students, right? So, that really changes the game for everything, because it's like, we've had this technology all along. Why were we not utilizing it? And now everybody's kind of scrambling, correct?
Yeah. So I think you're correct. And I think, once again, those with resources will be able to better utilize whatever, we'll be able to adapt better. Does that make sense? So like if you, even if you have done a lot of e-learning, right? And within the, higher ed, right? Even if you haven't done a lot of that, if you're in districts and universities that have had some resources to do this and they have the platforms to do it, then it's very simple, right? In some ways, like, I'm talking about the professionals. But I think the one of the, at least on my end, kind of like going along with what you're saying, I think one of my biggest issues goes again to, yes, it's been years since e-learning has occurred, right? There's been e-learning, but the mentality is that e-learning is a lower form of teaching, right? Because we assume that you need to have a teacher in front of you to learn, right? And that's kind of like the mentality of education, right? Like, what would you pay when you could just learn online, right? I mean, like, it's hard to like move past the preconceived notions of what learning is about, right? And reality is that higher education is supposed to not teach you how to like build a phone or do like a practical thing. It teaches you how to learn. It teaches you how to be a better critical thinker, how to express yourself better. I don't know if that worked out so well for me, but in the general sense, for most people, it does, right? And so I think that this is also putting us in that area where like it really needs to move away from, did you pass your assignments? Did you turn in your homework? And this goes through all K through 12 and K through 16 and K through 20 PhD programs, right? It doesn't matter. It's not about how difficult I make it for you to submit an assignment and how I'm gonna like grade that the hardest. It's more about like, how do I use that to like really be intentional about flaws on the learning, flaws on the mastery of concepts, and get students to really be empowered to seek how to fix those and how to improve, how to grow. So I think as much as this is kind of like, well, early learning has been around and we just haven't taken advantage of it, I think this goes beyond to, we need to go back to learning for the sake of learning and growing and being more aware, because the more knowledge you have, the better decisions you make, right? And so I think, at least that's the expectation, right? But I think that is where we're heading right now. I think the market, the higher ed industry, and just K through 16, K through 18 industry, it's really not about like how we move online. It's really about like, how do we make sure that we are instilling the interest, the aspiration to learn, right? To be motivated, to say like, I'm stuck at home with nothing to do. Why is sugar, disappearing in my coffee? Or why does it go to the bottom of it? My parents are drinking, like I started having those critical questions about like just life, right? And I think that is learning, right? Like the observation, why is this happening, right? And so I think, shifting a little bit on that end will be very, very impactful, very transformative in education itself. Not that it hasn't happened, but we just kind of moved away from it. We went on all grades, all how we test people, how good they are at taking exams. And, some people are really good at taking exams and can't make any good decisions, right? Not saying that all, but, that doesn't really give you that. So I think it's something that we need to, that it's going to transform. And if we take advantage of the situation, I think we could actually be very impactful globally about what education looks like in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think that and I think this goes for everybody. I think what this is doing is, yes, it's forcing us to collaborate a lot quicker now, right? But it's also forcing us to collaborate directly with people whom we may not have collaborated with in the past. Could we have done a panel like this years ago, months ago? Yeah. Did we have any real reason to? Sure, we could have, but we didn't really think that it was important. Now we're doing it. See, so I'm looking at things as how are we connecting globally? It doesn't always have to be about some direct outcome, because that can't always be the point of things, right? Right now with this panel, we're talking to exchange ideas and thoughts. Outcomes typically come from that. So again, appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Cortez. Mrs. Tree, can we get your thoughts on how has the current global market changed the course of your industry?
Because I will talk about education industry first, because e-learning, that's a really good point. And before, we all know like online education were developed to some degrees, but it's impossible to replace offline education, because offline has a unique way of transmitting certain information. A lot of things you can learn offline, but you cannot get from online. But it will also occupy a certain share, because there must be some knowledge can spoken online. In the past, the cost of online education was too high. People think it's too much hassle. You need to educate. Basically, you need to educate your clients, your students, of how to use them, and you need to modify all your materials to be like online adaptable. But now, because this outbreak, people are forced to become familiar with these tools. Like elementary, junior high school students in particularly, they are taking online classes every single day. Like I have a neighbor on upstairs. They're taking PE classes in the room, so I can hear it, playing basketball in the room. And for education industries, like even the Education Bureau, they will begin to realize the online education is also valuable. So after the pandemic, the users have been forced to begin to get used to some behavior changes. The online meeting you were talking about, the online education. Definitely, I think it will be irreversible transformation. And talking about what did I do, like in my industry, like in my company. So actually, the outbreak was right before Spring Festival. So our Spring Festival is like 7 days national holiday, and plus another 7 days holiday festival. So the schools were closed anyway, and until the government announced like it's not only 2 weeks, it will be 1 or 2 months, and we started to panic. Like all my work was offline. How can I do with it? Like how do I connect with my students? So we used 1 week to like search all the platforms, to test all the platforms, to modify all the materials to be adapted to online classes. We shrink our class time from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. So it's easier for students to adapt it. And we used the whole new platform. We use the Zoom for our English classes, because we can use breakout room for discussion, for more interactive classes. And we use WeChat, a Chinese app like Facebook, Instagram, PayPal, combined together. We use that for English activities. So thousands and thousands of students, they're still able to learn English while quarantined. So all the classes and activities are quite popular. Once we release, in 5 minutes, it will be fully booked. So I also created a platform to spread more positive energy. Mental health is the most important during this quarantine. Even though people that you are pretty introvert, you were staying at home anyway. But once you know you can't go out, you want to go out, and all the news online, you feel anxious. So I started to do like an article a day with the audio, to teach some English and correct some Chinglish and link with daily news. Try to be more objective, be more positive. As a big company, we have strong cash flow, so we didn't lay off any, and make sure everyone still have the basic salary, and offers all students 2 months free studying, and transfer 1,000 students who want to get a refund because they couldn't join offline classes to an online package, which is cheaper one, but we still keep our students, and we didn't lose too much profit. So, and we respond really fast. So our current students are pretty satisfied and bring us more referrals. So in some cities, they even have a better result than before. But a lot of small education companies, they have a lot of debt. They don't have enough cash flow. So they have to give students half or like even full refund because they couldn't deliver classes online, or they have to cut off salary level people, or even bankrupt. So in education industry meets a lot of difficulties for sure. And for another industry, travel industry, for Spring Festival, because usually that 2 weeks festival takes 30 to 40% of revenue of the whole year. So you can imagine like what kind of sacrifice we've been doing. Any domestic booking will be fully refunded to all Chinese citizens. So like, but as long as you can go through these 2 months and your card's still on the table, so you will still be able to see, because we're already out of the curve right now. So we already see, we call it revenge spending. So the travel business still can thrive, have like a huge explosive growth after it. For example, here we have a really famous park. Day one open, 10,000 people rushed to see the cherry blossom. Because we don't have any new cases for whole months now. So like I'm not too worried about the travel industry. And the education industry, definitely we will meet a lot of different opportunities. You have to two fish tanks. One is online and one is offline. After this pandemic, everyone still go back to offline, but you still need to keep some small portion of online products. So just in case you have other crises. Yeah, that's basically my point of view.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I think that you had a good point in terms of, when the pandemic is over, is everybody going to go back to kind of what they were doing before, offline stuff, or, to our point earlier, do we begin to solidify more e-learning things going forward? So, that's great things to think about. Ms. Howard, can we get your perspective on how the current global market changed the course of your industry?
Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking twofold because, my industry as a whole is human resources, but I work with businesses who span across industries. But I'll touch on from a human resource perspective, this is a pivotal moment for, when I talk about a human-centric workplace, for organizations that are really understand what that means and how to create that. This is an easier transition for them. For organizations who have just been focused on business metrics and making money, and they also have a toxic environment, it's not looking good for them, because during this chaos, employees are either being let go or they're leaving because they're just not treated well. you know, I've heard of just horrible stories about, you know, employees working in areas that aren't sanitized or being forced to go to work. So this whole idea of psychological safety and helping employees through this change is one big piece and implication to this pandemic. The other thing is acquiring talent. So interestingly enough, you would think a lot of folks would stop hiring, which of course has happened for those who are struggling, but for those who are still in a good place, this is actually a gold mine because people are being let go. Great talent is being let go because of business challenges. And so anyone responsible for hiring or acquiring talent, this is actually a great opportunity to find some good talent. Maybe you can't hire them right away, but folks in my industry who I think are privy to this, you know, are searching for talent even in the chaos. And then the last thing is similar to what a few of you said earlier, which is how are you engaging, just like Aaron, you're looking to engage students in learning, you know, in the workplace, we're also looking to do that. We're also looking to build capability and drive collaboration and engagement. So it's a similar scenario where we're now struggling and scrambling to try to create experiences that can be generated online or through collaborative tools. And leaders in particular are struggling with this because not many leaders have had the opportunity to manage a virtual team or a remote team. So it's an entirely different style of leadership. It requires a lot of active leadership. So we're really starting to see this, who the strong leaders are and who the weak leaders are. So it's actually a great benefit to somebody like me, but you know, it does test and challenge leadership and the effectiveness of leadership through a crisis like this.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate that. And I think that's, you know, you have some really strong points. What stood out was one of your last statements, how this opportunity right now, or this situation is providing an opportunity for people to either become good leaders or become weaker leaders, right? And I feel like you mentioned it earlier too, is, you know, this wasn't on your resume prior, but now you can add crisis management, right?
Yeah.
So I think all of us being in the positions that we're in, we can all add that to our resumes now specifically, because I feel like we're all doing that in very different capacities. Yours more so, Angela, is directly tied to the company culture and people willing and wanting to work and being informed during this time. So, you know, that's very important. And I'm sure you're seeing a lot of people either step up or taking a seat quickly.
Yep, absolutely. This is a pivotal moment for leadership, and we are seeing people, just like you said, step up or step out, and it's very evident very quickly.
Well, I think that too, you know, we look at this as an opportunity, right? So yes, we may have to carry a little bit more of the load on the front end right now directly, but again, this is an opportunity for us to look at the situation afterwards and know who we got to cut, right? Who we have to support and who we have to continue to build up. So, you know, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that's the way I'm looking at the situation. At the end of the day, after all of this dies down, right? Who's still here? Who's still here? Who were the people that were creating? Who were the people that were collaborating throughout this time? Who were the people that were looking at this as an opportunity to continue to innovate? And that's the point of this conversation, right? You know, when we're put in the fire, what's going to happen? Are you going to fold? Can I depend on you? Are we going to continue to collaborate? Are we going to be able to build something bigger from this? And I can't ultimately leave it up to you to say, hey, there's opportunity for us to innovate at a very large level, and I can't do it all on myself, right? So I'm looking at this pandemic and this crisis, if you will, as an opportunity to weed out people who are part of the long-term vision. And that's just the way I look at things. And from a corporate perspective, I'm assuming that that's how the executive leadership team at your corporation is looking at things.
Well, yeah, it's a direct. I don't know who. I think Mark Cuban mentioned it. There was an article that he wrote about the brand of a corporation is under microscope times 10 right now, and probably has about 10 years of impact. So how your organization, how your corporation handles this crisis with your employees, with your, with how your values, how you live out those values, this is the test, and it's going to impact your brand for 10 years. I'll send that to this team, which I thought was a really valid and interesting article, but it gets to that point, Adrian. Yeah.
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate that. So we'll move on to Erika. How's the global market changed the course of your industry?
Okay, thanks, Adrian. So as mentioned earlier, I work in 3 industries: nonprofit, outsourcing, and manufacturing or craft breweries, right? So let me go through each of them, if that's okay. So with nonprofit, what I see in times like these are, what stands out is really people's willingness to help each other, that sense of community and things like that. And it's really been evident here in my country. We've been on lockdown, yes. That means there's no transportation. Food supply is there, but it's really hard to get to. Medical staff is overworked, very stressed out. So the emphasis right now of most people, of most nonprofits, is helping these frontliners. With us, it's really helping our beneficiaries, but we can't do that. We're not social workers. We cannot obtain a quarantine pass that can get us out there, essentially. So what I'm doing is mobilizing our partners that do have that access. So we've moved from an activity-based organization to a funding-based organization that quick. It's a release of funds so that our beneficiaries can get survival kits, personal protective equipment, food, just basic food, clean water. They do not have access to that on normal days. So it's not, there's a lot of activity going on, but it's not stressful at all. I would say it's more rewarding because you see your efforts being appreciated, and you're directly benefiting those who are really very vulnerable at this time. For outsourcing, so in the Philippines, the outsourcing industry really is one of the top industries in the country. So in terms of business continuity, we were allowed to go on to continue working. Okay, so what does it mean for us? Our workers have been moved to 60 to 70% of our workers are now working from home. So we've mobilized desktops, laptops, internet dongles for them. For those that don't have internet access, we've put them all on a work from home basis. That's one. For those that cannot work from home, that do need to come to the office, at the very least, we sanitize everything, every hour on the hour in the office. We've provided them with accommodations very close to the office. So we've booked hotels, we've booked our sleeping quarters. We have sleeping quarters in the office as well. We've booked that. We've provided them with food, with cash incentives, et cetera, et cetera. Employers at this time really try to take care of their workers if they can afford it. It's been quite, at the same time also, I would have to add that because we're outsourcing, our clients are from the US and Europe. They're really badly hit right now. So at this time, the clients have requested for us to keep working, really keep working for them to continue on with their business. And of course, we not only need to do that because we're contractually obligated, but we want to. I think at this time we're all in this together, where we need to really help each other, both on the personal level and the professional level. And manufacturing, craft brewery, that's where the interesting part comes in. So in craft beer, the Philippines, as I've mentioned earlier, is still a developing market with regard to that, with regard to high quality alcohol. Okay, so even though alcohol is a recession-proof product, high alcohol drinks are high quality alcohol. Sorry, isn't is still very discretionary. Prior to this prior to this, we were brewing at capacity. We sold all our beer right away. Demand was really much higher than what we could supply, and we were really just on the brink of expansion. But guess what? Once this happened, 95%. Our sales went down 95%. Okay, and that's how much we suffered. With a key account, for instance, one of our key accounts would consume 1 keg a day. That key account went from 1 keg a day to 1 keg per 3 weeks. So the numbers really slowed down. There's also a liquor ban in some cities around the country, including Cebu, where our brewery is. Another thing, high quality alcohol tends to employ on average 7 times as many people per liter produced, because we rely less on automation. So what does this mean for us? We've had to shut down the brewery. We've had our fellow brewers also had to shut themselves down, because it's really difficult at this time to rationalize their production, essentially. So of course we still pay their salaries, etc., but we can't produce anything right now. This is an industry as well that is highly dependent on tourism. So no one's here, nobody's coming. Our resort cities have shut down as well. It's really quite difficult to get the supply chain going, and it's a pivot. We find that the pivot may be necessary quickly, in terms of distribution, in terms of just everything, maybe even product verticals, for instance. On the tech side, I do consult, and I'm partnering with a few tech companies. So one of them is it's an educational platform that had to come up really fast. We had to conceptualize really fast, because it was originally a steam toy company, a company that made steam related toys and sold them at malls, retail outlets, etc. Once this happened, all the malls shut down, everything shut down. So they had to pivot really quickly to an online platform where people could probably either purchase their items or even learn online. So we're trying to create content in a span of 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it's been quite interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So
Sure.
it's definitely interesting how you were able to tie in all those different industries and how they've all been.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of us took a step back when we heard that your sales took a hit of 95%. That's
Yes.
a pretty big number. So
just to add to that, so people here are generally it's a very it's a market on the rise. We're not that sophisticated as drinkers. We would hesitate to pay $5 for a bottle of craft beer, because really a local beer would only cost less than $1. So we were, as an industry, struggling already, but with this, it's just 95% down. So
cool. So I think that we have a pretty good take of how these industries have been impacted. Again, we could probably talk about this for hours, right? But I'd like to move on to the next question. And for the sake of time, because I do want to open it up at the end, I do have a couple questions I want to open it up to. But as we wrap up the next question, which is a very important question, I would like Aaron to open it up, and then I'll have Angela follow Mr. Cortez. But the next question is, how can we leverage our capabilities to innovate for uninterrupted programming and cash flow?
So mute myself. All right. So this one's a tough because, you know, once again, it deals with how quickly things transition and change, right? So one of the things that we have done is just really see the next 4 or 5 months, right? Which is a little bit beyond what I think many of us should, but at least on our end, knowing that we have a required services to offer, right? So we get funding to provide this type of services. So that's kind of like what gets you moving, right? At least in my industry or in the industry that I work at. So for example, we are required to do some type of summer program for our students. Well, you know, we don't know how things are going to go. So we need to figure out how would those services occur if we're still in a no face-to-face interaction type of situation, right? So, you know, at the moment what we're doing is a lot of what has been shared also by many of my colleagues is just capacity building, right? So within your own staff, how do you make sure that they use the right services, the right systems, the tools, how you choose and make decisions on what tools and systems you're going to use, right? Can you afford to pay for them? Can you process those payments, right? When it comes about like, how do you use your funding and your resources, right? So, you know, how a system or a service needs to be purchased to do this kind of work, right? So that's something that might not have been in your budget at the beginning of the year, but now it's something that needs to be added, right? Expected services. So like if you have, at least on our end, and many of your programs that do summer programming, have all these contracts with organizations, institutions, businesses to deliver services. And so, you know, the transition of how that's going to even occur, right? Do those businesses have now a plan to offer this digitally, right? And how the experience actually changes, right? Because it's, let's just say you have a speaker engagement, right? And so you have someone coming in and doing some type of like speaking series where, you know, a lot of the work tends to be more personal, right? Like engaging with the student, facilitating, getting a feedback from them, right? Because if you're just talking and talking, it doesn't matter. But if I see you, then I could, you know, switch and move. And, you know, that's the skill of a speaker, right? If everybody's bored, then I'll move in a different area, right? So like in those terms, are we being proactive and contacting our vendors, our partners, our collaborators, and say, hey, how is this going to look like? Are you there, right? Because then we also don't want to impact that industry either, right? Because it's so much easier to say like, well, we're not going to do it, you know, but that's just not going to help, right? So we still need to deliver services. Things need to move forward. There's some things that we might end up doing digitally. A lot of our trips are canceled. We can move, right? We can't really transport students. We can go to the other countries. So how are we preparing for that service to still somewhat occur, right? In which way? What structure does that look like? Is it even possible? So I think, you know, when you're looking at the question on, you know, how we're leveraging our resources, is to be mindful, to be thoughtful of, you know, maybe today, instead of like thinking about like all the emails that I need to respond, I need to just sit down and be like, what are the possibilities in the event of not being able to deliver services face to face? When I cannot contact people one-to-one, what do I need to do? And then bring that back to your leadership team, to your partners, and be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And, you know, maybe it's about like slowing down, right? And saying like, let's come out with a plan, a strategy, a pilot that's going to work for the next couple of weeks until we end up going to some digital normalcy, right? Like where people understand what this is looking like in the next couple of months, right? And I think it's right. Go ahead.
I was saying, or what digital normalcy even means. Right.
Which is something that, you know, it's going to happen in each industry in a different way, right? And so, you know, once again, if you're in your industry, you're still and globally, you're still connecting with people like via email, like within this team, right? Everybody's in different countries, different states. Then we're still doing that digitally normalcy, right? Because that's what we know, you know. So I think, you know, just transferring some of those and getting people to be more used to not so worry about like, oh, well, now I got to go to this Zoom meeting and this other meeting and this other meeting. It's like, well, you know, what platform is really useful? People don't need to jump into 3 different vendor applications to have their meetings, you know? So I think that is kind of like where let's pick something, let's try it, let's move forward, and still try to do the best we can about funding, right? So like if cash flow is not coming, let's just say I charge for this, right? Let's just say we charge students to participate. No, we don't do that, but I'm just saying, right? If we are in that industry, well, what am I doing to make sure that the services continue and that people see that regardless of if I'm in person or I'm digitally, that the service still continues and it's going to have the same high quality, right? And it's still going to be impactful. So at the end of it all, time is of the essence, right? We're not going to gain this months, right? Like if you stop doing what you're doing, it's just, you're not going to gain them back, right? Life is just that way, right? We get older, you lose that time. So I think, I don't want to sound like too crucial, but it's really about, what are we doing to make sure that this time is not wasted? And, once again, going back to our situation, we have public schools that are saying, well, we can't even grade students' homework because, we don't have the systems. I'm like, well, let's just start with what we do have, right? And so like, I know that not everybody has access, but those that have access, let's just get them moving, right? Because it's better to have some people engaged than have no one engaged because the decisions are not being made because too much liability. Yes, there are liabilities, but we need to start somewhere, right? And so I think, we can't spend a whole month figuring out what's going to happen without any like actual solutions, right? There needs to be a strategic approach to this. And we need to see like, how do we also impact other industries? Because if I cannot pay my vendors, then they're going to start laying off people. And those people might be the parents, not saying that it is, but might be involved in that industry that my students are part of. So now, the industry itself is just, it's a big circle. So I think, I think we just need to realize that, stopping and not doing anything, it's not the solution. It's about not going outside and engaging with other people and passing the virus around. That, yes, but you could still work, and in some way, I mean, you could call, I don't know, there's a million of things that we could do. But I think really this is the time that we're asking for leadership, many of us that lead our teams, to start getting on the ball and making those decisions and not to be too worried about like failure, right? Some things are going to work, some things are not going to work. Are we going to do this together, right? And I think that is what is, we're apart, but this is what is making us, this catastrophe, this pandemic is getting us closer than we ever were, because now we got to trust each other. You're not expecting that just because you show up to the office, you're doing work. Now I gotta trust that you're going to complete your tasks, that you're going to meet your goals and your outcomes. I don't need to see you in the cubicle to do this, right? So I think that's bringing us a lot closer. So I think that's a lot, but I think it just touches on how do we need to, at least how we are planning to move forward ourselves.
Thank you. I think a point that stood out to me, being kind of in hybrid industries, is we all understand we're in a situation right now. That's obviously the biggest thing, and we all understand that. But to a couple of your points, we need to move. Whether or not we fail at this point, it doesn't matter, right? We're pretty close to rock bottom. So if we're implementing strategies and models and protocols that don't work, well, guess what? We have weeks to fine tune it, right? We have months to figure out what does and what doesn't work. But the thing is, if we don't move, we're going to end up in the same place in 2 months with 2 months wasted. So, a platform like this is, something we could have built out over 2 months and prepared for this. No, for whoever listens to this later on or right now, we decided to do this platform maybe a week ago, 10 days ago. And we're here now. Whether or not it is the best way, the worst way, the fact of the matter is we're moving and we're getting people talking. We'll fine tune it over the next 2 months that we have to be in our house. But the fact of the matter is we have to move. So thank you for bringing up all those wonderful points, Aaron. Angela, if you could speak a little bit about how we can leverage our capabilities to innovate for uninterrupted programming and cash flow.
Yeah, so I think, again, Aaron, even though we're in different industries, there's a lot of similarities because our audience is just a little different, right? So I'm working with the workforce, you're working with students, but there's a interconnectivity between it. So I won't repeat anything you said, but maybe supplement to say, this is again, I'll go back to the leadership challenge. This is a challenge for leaders to learn more about what does adult learning mean? You know, not just sharing information, which a lot of people who don't have this background in adult learning tend to do, but now I have to learn about how to keep you engaged, how to explain things in ways that are more difficult when we're not face to face. So I think there's a capability around, we all have to learn a little bit on how to engage each other when we're not face to face. And that we have the technology, we have the tools, it's how you use them. So I think that's one piece. And then around capacity, you know, really challenging everybody to prioritize and reprioritize. To me, this gets to resilience too, being able to plan something at the beginning of the year and then something happened. So how do I rework and recalibrate to make sure I'm focused on the right things? That takes a real capability and skill set. It takes some strategic thinking. And to your point, Adrian, about being able to still move, but have the foresight to focus on the right things. Not just the things that are right in front of you reactively, but what are the right things to move the ship in this tough time. And then, you know, a lot of what I do is around soft skills. So it's, like I said, leadership, I've said that a million times, but also how do you build resilience with your team? How do you build interconnectivity? One of the things that we've done is we've started these daily meetings where we meet with the full team, about 140 people. And we've created also kind of these, we use Microsoft Teams as a tool, but we use these channels where people can share about what they're doing at home or their workplace or what workouts, you know, just finding ways to create the space. And the space looks a little different because we're online now, but create the space for people to connect. It becomes even more important when we can't be face to face with each other. So some of the softer skills I think are really important during this time.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think that at this point, you know, we said we want to tackle these questions. We want to tackle innovation. It's going to take longer than a 1.5 hour call, right? Or a 1.5 hour video conference. Just the thoughts and the premises that we've been able to develop within this conversation alone has already, you know, has got me thinking of how we can move forward as a team, specifically us five, but also other people in my network, in your network, right? I feel like, well, I don't feel, I know that this is going to be a conversation that all of us are going to continue to have over the next couple months as things change, shift, develop, things of that nature. So with that, I just want us to, you know, continue to think about this, keep the conversation going. Before I ask everybody to kind of give a quick closeout statement. I do want to take one quick question from a good friend of mine. He's Dr. Danilo Leon out of Colorado State University. Dr. Leon, are you there?
Yes.
So I know you wanted to ask a question earlier. You reached out. If y'all don't mind, this is Dr. Danilo. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi everybody. So I wish Sylvia was still here because I think she'll be the best person to sort of, you know, contribute to the conversation. But maybe Aaron can help me out here. So I was just been thinking of how this is going to impact enrollment of students, right? Because we, you know, I'm thinking that kids who are, you know, middle upper class will have a less of an economic impact, you know, like probably by default or just go back to school, continue, graduate. However, I teach at a Hispanic serving institution. Most of our students are low income, and if they don't have a job, which it looks like a lot of them will probably lose their jobs, I'm not really sure how they're going to go back to school. And especially dreamers, we have many dreamers in our school. They don't even have any access to any government help, right? They cannot apply to student loans. They're not, they don't qualify for trio programs, and basically they just work 2 or 3 jobs, and then they bring literally cash to the university and pay for the school. That's how they go to college. So several of my students are dreamers. So I'm not being the government or having the government we have at the moment. I don't see the administration helping them at all. And that really worries me because it looks like some of my students will probably not be able to go back to school in the fall. So I want to know if there's anything we can do, or if you think I'm wrong, please tell me that I'm wrong, because I would like to hear that. But as of now, I'm very worried.
Let me, nice to see you again, Danilo.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what at least I am aware of here in Chicago and with some of our colleagues. So the first thing is I will send you an email and share this information. I'll share this with Adrian too, but I have 2 colleagues, amazing women that have been very involved in supporting undocumented students, dreamers and not dreamers, right? Because we know that that's also a space now that we are where people are just not able to even apply for it, right? To be DACA.
Can you really quickly, can you explain what a dreamer is for Tree and Erika?
Sure. So a dreamer is an undocumented individual, and there is a legislation regulation, and it's gonna take a long time because this is like very it's a large concept, right? But it is individuals that do not have a citizenship in the United States or residency in the United States, so they don't have a means to be part of what we would consider normal society and get the same rights as many of us do as citizens or residents. That's a short version. I mean, it's a longer one, right? But there are number of people in politics trying to pass acts, and that's why the DREAM Act, that will allow for a path to citizenship, a path towards residency, and then leadership, citizenship. And it depends which package you're reading. I mean, it's been going on for a lot of years, right? I remember I was still in college and I did a lot of the marches, right? Like where you went outside and you walked saying, you know, we need the DREAM Act to be passed, and buses went to DC to like fight for this. And so anyway, so it's a big issue, right? So that's Dreamers. A little bit different from that is the DACA program, which is, you know, a regulation that allows undocumented youth and young adults, depending on what year and the policies that be available, to be able to get a Social Security card, and you know, have a driver license and some benefits to the program to actually engage a little bit more in some rights in some ways, right? I mean, once again, it's very complicated, but you know, nowadays with this new government, they haven't allowed for more DACA applications. So there's again a group of undocumented youth, undocumented young adults and adults that are not able to benefit from this. So I hope that I did a somewhat of a okay job with this description, Danilo. I know there's a lot more to it, but so we are also an HSI, Northeastern Illinois University. We're an HSI. We also serve the same kind of population that you're talking about, Danilo. So you know, we have our colleague Lubia Moreno, and I could give you that information. She's oversees all the undocumented work at the university. And so one of the things that they were working, I'm just aware because, you know, I get the information from them. I don't really work on that side, but one of the things that they were looking at is like unemployment benefits. So if you're a DACA, at least in the state of, and it should be everywhere, but you know, I know that there is information that you could actually apply for unemployment if you're a DACA. Undocumented, that's a whole different story. But if you have DACA paperwork, then you could do that. So I'm not saying that's going to fix something, but that's something better than nothing, right? In some ways, right? So I could send that and see if, you know, that also applies, or is that's just a state one. In the state of Illinois, they also passed so that the students could actually apply for state funding for college. So that's also another thing that has been pushed and it's been approved. So like starting this year, 2020, DACA students could actually, and undocumented students, if I'm aware, and then I'll go back to it. I'll share the document if I'm incorrect on that one. But I'm aware that they could actually apply for MAP granting. I think it's MAP or some kind of like funding to pay for school. So that's kind of like in the financial side of it. I think, the reality is, many of our youth that are underserved, they're low income, they might be DACA, not DACA, but just low income, right? They saw the campus in some ways, not all the time, as the only viable source for their future, right? In that, they have dorms there, they might have a meal plan. And I'm not saying this is everyone, but there's a good group of them that have that, and now that's been taken away, right? So like we're very worried about that. And I think a few of the things that we did is like during this week with the TRIO communities that we advocated for being part of the package aid that is on the approval process, right? To get funding so that we could actually give stipends to students that are in college, about, I think it's up to $2,000 or something in the regulation. And then also have some funding to also provide access to internet, like pay their fees, and buy some like equipment for them to use technology. So there's a number of things that are being pushed, and yeah, that's for TRIO participants. But I think that kind of pushes also towards other individuals that might be in the category, might not be served by a TRIO program, but they fall under low income, first gen, underserved, or population that is not as representative in a field, right? And I think there's a number of these things that are happening. My suggestion would be that and not a suggestion, but like, one of the things that I'll see is that how involved we are with our institution, right? How involved we are with the leadership group, and how do we invest ourselves into advocating for those individuals, right? Regardless of what your role is as a professor, tenured professor, adjunct professor, counselor, advisor, it does not matter, because we're more likely not the only ones that are thinking about this and asking this question. So I think, putting it up front and reaching out leadership at the institution, it's necessary for this to be addressed, right? So, I know for a fact that like we're moving into enrollment time, right? Like I'm getting those emails like we need to reach out to high school students and we need to do this and we need to do that, and enrollment is moving forward for summer. At least that's the information I'm getting. I might be incorrect, that might be just a rumor. I don't have a formal emails, a lot of the communications that are going in and out from meetings, right? But if it's happening, right, like, so how do we get on front of it and come out with like some type of support system for those students that might be looking at enrolling, right? And what are we telling them? How will this look to them, right? And so if we advocate for them in those meetings, then the transition will be a little bit better, not perfect, but a little bit better, and there'll be someone actually speaking on their behalf, right? So I think it's always about that. It's about like being at the table.
And I think that
that helps.
Yeah, and I think that you have a good point in terms of serving as advocates, because a lot of these students are they're gonna be in crisis mode as well, and they're not gonna understand all the resources that they need to have to be able to access without us. Really quick, Mr. Danilo, give me 1 second. We're gonna go back to Mr. Cortez, or that hold your question, but Ms. Howard has a hard stop time, and I want her to be able to give a quick closeout before she has to make her way out. Really quickly, Ms. Howard, I appreciate your time, appreciate your talents, your insights, and everything that you've added to this conversation.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone on the panel. It was great meeting you all, hearing your insights. I found it extremely valuable, and it's got my wheels turning. So I would just say this, this is, I think what I've heard from everybody is this is a opportunity for greatness, and we can either kind of step up and lead or not. And I think everyone that's on this panel today, and mostly everyone who's listening today, obviously, is in that space of being able to take this opportunity to build capability, to do business differently. And from my vantage point in HR, how do we really take advantage of all the strengths that we have in our workforce, and how do we upskill people really quickly in a rapid way? So I'm personally, I have cabin fever at home. I want this to blow over, but I do think this is a great opportunity for us to catapult ourselves into innovation, which is what this panel is all about. So I'm sorry that I have to hop off so quickly. I'm headed right into another coronavirus task force meeting for our employees. So I just appreciate you all. It was great meeting you. And thanks, Adrian, for having me.
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, let me, Danilo, how does that, where you at?
I'm here.
Cool. So, with that said, yeah, I think that, Aaron touched quite a few bases for you. This is obviously something that y'all could talk about offline as well. And I think Mr. Cortez also mentioned that he had a few resources that he wanted to share with you.
Okay, thank you.
So I appreciate you asking that question. All right, so as we move forward, I'd like to have Tree give a couple closeout words.
Hello, hearing all this, even though we're in different countries, have different systems, we still share the similar challenges. It's like, we were already kind of after pandemic now, because all the problems like you guys met, we already met. So I hope like we can have some like transparent information, like share information, share some experience to you guys. So really this is time to move forward together to fight this together and make just cooperation together. So for like here we have two kinds of like psychology. After in this pandemic, a lot of people they think it's time to have fun. After the pandemic, they will spend all the money. So that's opportunity for some industries too, for like travel, for social networking, and some they will think they were prepared for next crisis. We call it sense of anxiety, and that also creates more opportunities for education too, because people will realize they need to spend more. They will need to focus on their inner growth. So a lot of people they use this quarantine time for studying, like taking care of their health, develop more hobbies. So overall, I think it's pretty. I think it's just we need to see more opportunities behind the crisis. We hope we can turn this crisis turn around and turn into our opportunities.
Thank you, Tree. And then we'll go next to Miss Erika Aquino.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Tree. It's past midnight here where I'm at, where Tree and I are at. But I know I am not gonna sleep tonight. The wheels are turning, just like Angela said. I'm already thinking of concrete ways in which we can all help each other. For instance, outsourcing. We're already used to kind of working remotely, internationally. How can we leverage those strengths to help the education sector in the United States? How can we leverage that? At the same time, how can the educational sector give us content to put online? How can we convert everything? How can we basically play off each other? And as a public relations professional, I'm also trained in crisis management. And one thing that we that is taught is open communication lines. Okay, so we over prepare and we have open communication lines with everybody. And I think this panel is really the start of that. I'm really inspired to hear everybody's strengths. I'm also I guess the empathy for the issues that we face. It's really strong right now with everybody, and I think that as Tree said, this is really the opportunity for us to work together to create opportunities out of something that just affects us all. I'm really happy to have met everybody again, and I'm happy to have met Angela. Thanks for this, Adrian. Thanks for organizing it. It was amazing, and I think I will just try and jot down everything that I have learned today so that we can use this in a future session.
Awesome, awesome. Mr. Cortez, some closing words.
Sure. Just once again, just I'm going to echo everyone and say that thank you for this, Adrian. It's really good. Like I said, being able to share thoughts and to hear somebody else's strategies, and know that once again, we are all in this together, right? And so, how could we better support each other and grow this network of people that are in the same position as we are, regardless of the industry? And so, how does this look forward for us? And how, as being a part of the generation that is going to potentially, make some decisions in the future, right? How do we address this, right? And how do we make sure that we prepare for the next catastrophe, right? I think, it's not just about how we get out of this one, it's how do we learn not to be in this position again, or be better prepared if we end up in this position again. So I think, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, everyone. And, good luck and stay safe. And if you need to stay at home, stay at home.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure.
Well,
For sure. Yeah.
well, as I look at it, as I begin to close up as well, I know, I didn't share too much about, my specific situation, but we all work very closely with one another. So I'm extremely appreciative to each and every one of you for making the time out to be a part of this. Each and every single one of you has collaborated with me at a very high level. And whenever, I come up with some interesting, kooky, random idea, I'm always supported by each and every one of you. So I have to, give you a huge thank you. We're in a position right now where, the opportunity is there. The question is, do we take it? So in developing this panel, y'all were the first people that I could think about that could help lead the charge. Whether we're in corporate America, whether we're in higher ed, whether we're in outsourcing, whatever industry we're in, we've all become very high-level thought leaders. So I think the beauty that lies within my ability to connect and bring people together is to leverage a network that brings synergy amongst each other. So I think today's conversation really spoke to that. So again, I have to say thank you 10 times over to each one of you. A special thank you to everybody who provided some insight. Dr. Leon, Danilo, appreciate you with your question. So, we could have this conversation all day, but again, I appreciate y'all just becoming a part of this first part of this global leadership panel. And I'm excited to see where this goes and to see what we specifically develop from this. And I'm looking at you, Tree, looking at you, Erica, and I'm looking at you, Aaron. So, we have a lot of work to do, but that's what we're built for, right? So, a lot of people are stressing. I think we spoke today about a lot of opportunity too. So we'll be in contact, and we'll send up a follow-up email with everybody's LinkedIn information and all that good stuff so we can stay connected and keep creating. Appreciate your time.